Yes, sir. Mr. Chairman, board members, we have a little presentation I want to make to you this evening, and then introduce Megan Brown to your finance director to walk you through the budget. And I'm going to go down front if that's okay, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
PowerPoint presentation. I think one of the things I wanted to do with y'all first, Mr. Chairman, board members, is talk to you particularly about funding, and a meeting that Megan and I attended in May. Claire Suggs brought us some very good information about what's happening in the state of Georgia. And with regard to our budget this evening, I think it's important for me to give you that information so you have a little idea about why the budget is the way it is and what's happening in the state of Georgia. State funding since 2002 in Georgia, per student has declined 15.3%. The percent of economically disadvantaged students climbed from 45 to 60%. Bartow County school system has 61.3% of students in free and reduced lunch. So a little bit above what the state says they have as an average. But as you all know, poverty is an issue that's hard to work through instructionally. Shifting responsibility for K-12 education funding in Georgia. As you do know that the Constitution of Georgia says that it is the responsibility of the state to provide for public education. And this pie chart shows that funding in 2002 in the state of Georgia, the local expenditure was 38%, and in 2013 it was 41%. It is not primary funding responsibility for the taxpayers in Bartow County to fund public education. It is the responsibility of the state of Georgia. And unfortunately, we see a shift in that to local boards and the citizens in the county. K-12 formula unfunded by $1 billion in 2014. This is a bar graph that shows the zero line, which is typically what has been given in QBE. And when Joe Frank Harris Sr. established QBE, we all know that it was not fully funded. But the zero line is where in 2003 we were in austere times, and so the state said we need some money to help support the budget in Georgia all the way through 2014. But if you look at starting in 2010, that's where they really started hitting public education pretty hard. Knowing, of course, that QBE wasn't fully funded, they then started hitting over the $1 billion mark for the money that they said they were going to send us, but they did not send us. Very important graph. They reduced it over the last couple of years, but it still remains a pretty significant amount that they're not sending for us to pay our staff and operate our school system. Between 2008 and 2012, I just fell 17.3%. Between those years, local revenue per student fell by 5.8%. So if you look at some of the concerns that we have as a school system and as a school board, try to fund our staffs and the programs that we have, this is a pretty good indication of what has happened with that. Impact of funding losses, 71% of the school districts responded, districts cut the school year. We've done that. 95% increased class sizes. We have not significantly increased class sizes, and I'll talk with you in a minute about some of the opportunities that we had that we didn't take. About 70% have eliminated instructional support positions. We have continued to maintain those. 80% have cut central office staff. 82% are using reserve funds for the year. Look at those last two items. Those have been significant issues for us. As you know, for the last 5 years, or at least 6, we used our reserve funds to really be able to balance our budget. 2015 budget is $19.9 billion. As you look at the pie chart, it says $10.3 billion for education. We hear our legislators talk a lot about how much money is spent on education in the state of Georgia. And so the taxpayers come to believe that that $10.3 billion is for K-12 education. program is going to make sure that you understand. Only 38% of that is for K-12 education. The rest is for higher education. Revenue sources. Personal income is $9.5 billion. One of the charts that you will see that I'll give you in just a few minutes talks about personal income. We see revenue has come back, but personal income has not come back to the point where revenue is. And certainly as our taxpayers in Bartow County make a lower wage, they will contribute at a lower level for us with regard to revenues for the state of Georgia. Revenue by the numbers, we're 49th in the country with state tax revenue per person. That's a 2012 number. 46 is state tax revenue as percentage of income. The state and local tax revenue per capita are 46 there as well. We're asked to compete with other states who fund their education system a lot more appropriate than we do. Revenues finally surpassed 2007 levels. You see that FY 2007 at 18.8 billion revenue of general and motor fuel funds. And we've finally gotten above that in 14 and 15, but you still see significant reductions in what the state is sending to the school systems. Budget growth for 2015 is $928 million. If you look at the state budget, that's where they've made some increases in appropriations. Partial restoration of K-12 formula cut, $314 million. I have another chart in just a minute that helps go into that a little more deeply. K-12 and university system formula, $1.5 billion. Medicaid and peach care, $173 million. Teacher unemployment retirement, and $42 billion. State employee salary increases, $51. The Department of Justice settlement agreement, $34 million. QBE funding. As some of you remember, I fussed at the governor when he said he gave $500 million back, and I said 314 doesn't equal $500 million, but 180 does. So this is where he's made some adjustments with some additions to public education and K-12 funding in the state of Georgia. $314 million for K-12 formula cut, formula growth, T&E, rest that's training and experience. That comes a year late, and from when our teachers get reported. Teacher retirement system, they put $57 million of that and other $9 million. K-12 formula underfunded by $715 million in 2015. Remember, as I say to you, if we were still at that zero line of funding, we would be dealing with concerns and issues that we're dealing with now, which is using the reserve fund and also not having a balanced budget. Bartow County School System, let's bring it home to us for just a little bit. Preparing the students for challenges of tomorrow, we can't do without your support. Please know that what we do to try to develop budgets, what y'all do to support us, is always about the children. The students we try to educate, it's not about us. It's a different world for our kids today. Email is too slow for them. They don't fear Russia, they're blackboards or smartboards. They've never seen a Sears catalog or a phone book. They know Clint Eastwood as sensitive director, not Dirty Harry. And Dr. Nelson, the people have a few years on us like you and I. It's hard to believe that our kids don't have phone books. And I watch my own children who are young adults use these smartphones and the things that they do with them. And it's really unbelievable the access they have for information. One of the things that I've tried to emphasize with our staffs, as difficult as the one-to-one initiative is, that we have to get in that world with them. We have to educate them in that world. So you have one of your children here this evening, and I promise you, if he's like mine, really learn from that device and be guided by that talented classroom teacher and listen to that classroom teacher talk to him in front of him. One of the issues that we have had with the history of education of why are our kids having more success with reading, writing, and arithmetic, and I've talked about this for years, are the things that we have been asked to do that is really unrelated to those things. 1910 to 1950, we've added PE, football, vocational, mandated transportation, half-day kindergarten, finance, school lunch programs, driver's ed, sex ed. I still haven't seen a lot of research that says all the sex ed we teach our kids makes a big difference in them. And of course, our community say, oh, goodness, the parents aren't going to do it, who is? So we like to do those kinds of things. And those are that's time away from instruction. As much as I appreciate that kind of instruction going on for our children, it is time away from it. 60s and 70s advanced placement, adult ed, career ed, federally mandated special ed, drug programs, Title IX programs, school breakfast lunch programs. Got an email today that Ms. Blakely sent to me that said, here's a litany of things that the schools can't sell any longer. This federal mandate has come down, and y'all will be hearing about that. Not that I'm opposed to that, but y'all know some of the funding that our schools get with that. In the 80s, mandated child abuse monitoring, bilingual education, full-day kindergarten, and after-school programs, expanded health and psychological services. In the 90s, American 2000, that was establishing goals for public education. Goals 2000 was we're going to provide some additional money for that. That morphed into that next item of the 2000s, No Child Left Behind, but it expanded gifted education, at-risk and dropout prevention, race to the top, body mass monitoring, and much more. The issue that I have as your superintendent, and board members, y'all should have it as well. Whatever societal ill is coming along, we try to put that on our plate. And they do put that on our plate. Been an 18-page law passed for bullying in the state of Georgia. That was new to us. Now we're having to measure body mass index. It goes off to Atlanta. And I guess the legislators see that. I don't know. We don't know what happens with that information when it gets there. New Common Core curriculum, it's a national curriculum. We've been phased into, for the next 3 years, career pathways will be required for all students for graduation. New teacher leader evaluation, teaks and leaks instruments will require more time, and personnel implements and student learning objectives. Think for just a minute. What's new in that last bullet? Something that's a change for local public education. Board members, the evaluation system has been moved now to Atlanta. It's no longer here. All of that information is handled online and then moved there. Student learning objectives, called SLOs. If you're in a 9 weeks course, you get tested at the first of the 9 weeks and tested at the end of the 9 weeks if it's not a standardized tested course. If it's a semester course, you get tested the first semester and then the semester. Year course, first of the year and the end of the year. Imagine the testing that's involved with that with regard to SLOs. The issues that teachers have lodged with me as superintendent is, well, wait a second. I'm teaching a course that has a standardized test. I don't know the questions. But my compadre over there is teaching art. They've got student learning objectives, and they know what they are. It's kind of an unfair opportunity for me as a teacher based on the course that I teach. And that's going to be a real issue for some of our teachers as we move through the teaks and leaks system. We need quality professional learning for our staff so teachers are ready to teach Common Core curriculum and have strategies to promote higher order thinking. I've always said there is never a good time for professional development. Do we do it during the day? Take the teacher out of the classroom, put a substitute in there who's not as talented and get as that teacher. Well, let's do it at the end of the day. That's a good time for it. Teachers are burned out, they want to have training again. But we can do that on Saturday. That's a good time. Well, let's do it in the summertime. The industry can pull those people off the line and do the training, and things are still being made in that industry, whereas with us, with professional development, as much as we do of it, kids are losing valuable instructional time with that qualified teacher. Teachers need assessment tools for the Common Core to make sure that kids are learning the new curriculum. The intervention and support services for students will be needed. Public schools are facing major economic funding cuts from the state right down to the local level. One of the things that we keep talking about a lot with College and Career Academy is being able to get people like Anheuser-Busch or Oyster Plain, and other companies that are coming to us ready for our kids, is we're really working hard to try to graduate them. And if you look at the lines here, high school dropout, their employment rate is 12%. Take a high school graduate, they're 81%. Small college associate, 7.0, with a college bachelor's degree, 3.7. We're trying to get kids involved in career tracks that change that high school graduate number. We think once we get a kid in a career path, something they're interested in, that number will change significantly for them. Again, looking at, and y'all have seen this information, the dollar amounts difference between those. And one of the things that we're learning now in 2014 is that kids that get a high school diploma and get into industry, they're really making a pretty good salary. We've seen that shift with what we're doing in public education, particularly in the academy, which is being very, very successful. Per capita revenue is still below 2007. Remember the bar graph that I gave you that showed revenues were up, the salaries aren't up as much as the revenue is up. So in 2007, $2,011 as opposed to $1,944. So obviously the trends throughout the country is that people are getting jobs, but they're making a whole lot less money in those jobs. Programs not reduced to the state revenue cuts in Bartow County. I think it's important for me to share it with you, because we've had opportunities for board members. As superintendent, I want to provide as much for our students as I can provide for them. I want to stand up for them and say, no, we need to continue these kinds of programs, particularly these second, third, and fourth, and extracurricular activities. We're not significantly cut those. We cut out ninth grade sports. I've eliminated Spanish at middle level. And outside of that, that's what's happening there. I certainly strongly believe, and the board has communicated to me over the years, that they believe that art, music, and PE should maintain themselves at the elementary level. An audience for you that are there, you know, that's 12 teachers at each one of those schools for each of those areas, and that's what we could do. That's what we could save. But we're sacrificing our children in the process of that, because I certainly believe that our own two children, once they learn how to use that right side of their mind with art and music, there's so much better time to play around. Their scores are so much better. Physical education, we all know that these electronic devices have their issues, and my son has one of those issues. He has a weight problem because he loves that device, so he doesn't get the exercise that he needs to get. We've not asked for a tax increase. For those of you who don't know, 120 and 180 systems in the state of Georgia have asked for a tax increase. There's no significant increase in class size. We've maintained instructional support staff. We've continued classroom supplies at the same level that we tried to do for a number of years, traditional instructional schedule at mid and high. We hear a lot of stuff about, oh gosh, well, school system X is doing so-and-so, and they're giving bonuses and those kinds of things. They're also requiring their high school teachers to teach 6 periods as opposed to us teaching 5. So there are things that they've done over the years to be able to support their budget, but we believe that we need to continue this. These after-school programs are still at each school. Nurses and media specialists are at each school. There's been some change in that, some surrounding counties for media specialists. But with the issues that our kids have health-wise today, I still believe it's important to keep nurses inside of our schools. The state gives us about $253,000 for that. Those nurses cost us about $700,000. A lot of school systems have consolidated bus routes, but we haven't done that yet. We still run 155 buses and burn 400,000 gallons of diesel fuel a year, which as that continues to go up, that gets more expensive for us. Counties with a large percentage of the population without at least a high school diploma will find it extremely difficult to attract businesses and sustain a healthy economy. New businesses in Bartow County. Shaw's adding a plant in, there's the Trinity Rail is coming back. Oyster Plain has opened, and at the same time they opened, they broke ground to double the size of their plant. Toyo Tire has already had a ceremony that's going to double the size of their plant. Lake Point. I heard they played a game today, but I also heard that this weekend was the first pitch. That there are 30 to 40,000 room reservations already. We can't accommodate them here, but understand the model that Lake Point has. When you pull off the interstate and get into Lake Point, you'll never leave it. Ask Pro Shop, has already bought their property. They're going to build a shop there. Chick-fil-A has already been offered that franchise for our local Chick-fil-A individual. He's going to put a Chick-fil-A there.
I would like to point out too, and I'm not disagreeing with anything you're saying, but a positive thing that this board and you supported too was us supporting the commissioner to drop the Freeport. So the taxes on inventory went away. Without that, Shaw wouldn't be here. And we've got some new industries that are going to be here soon that haven't been announced yet because
Thank you, I appreciate that, Mr. Jim. I know that we've done that, that had crossed my mind to say to remind y'all of that. And I had another company that was coming to Bartow County because it wasn't released yet, but the governor this morning announced that Siri Carpets is locating in Bartow County, right next to the Highway 75 Industrial Park. I knew a month or two ago they'd already bought the property, and I know the civil engineering group was going to do that. We talked last Thursday at a meeting. Board members, this company is currently located in Morgan County. We're going to build a 1 million square foot facility on that site over there and employ 200 people, and we're going to be located in Bartow County. It's very exciting for you to work with Steve and Melinda to talk to that individual. The marketing plan is fantastic. I saw it. Home furnishings. They already sell from big box stores, and if you were to see what they had, it's very impressive. We educate approximately 14,000 students. There are 20 schools, 12 elementary, 4 middle, 3 high, 1 college and career academy. That accounts for some expenses in our budget. We believe that we needed to do that. We got a lot of community support to do that. We were on a conference call today, myself and Joe and Paul and Janet, with the German embassy to talk to them about what we can do to continue to bring them on board. And we're trying to arrange for exchange effort about September of next year for us to see what they're doing in their industry, then to come over to see us. All of our schools are associated, accredited by the Southern Associated Colleges and Schools, SACS. There's a 5-year review plan for 2014. I'll talk about that. Additional projects for 2014 and 15. I think this is important information for you to understand what we're going to have to be doing. And first is the Advanced Ed Review. This is the letter that we've been sent. It was sent September 11, 2013. And March 8th through the 10th, 2015, we're coming to look at our schools. And if you look at the bullet points of 1 through 4 and 1 through 6, those are the requirements that we're going to have to do to continue to have our schools accredited, so our students can qualify for the Hope Scholarship and be educated in an accredited school system. Also, Teacher Keys Effectiveness System, TEKS. Our principals are going to be less available to you than they ever have been. That instrument requires 4 10-minute walkthroughs, 2 30-minute observations, quick conference, a major conference, and a summative conference. And all that has to happen online, along with talking to the parent when they're going to see the principal and knowing the principal. I know we have assistants out there that will divide those duties and responsibilities up. But I questioned the person in charge of that system and said, I can understand doing a third of our staff at one time, but 100% when the instrument is new, it's going to be extremely difficult for us. Reader keys, I have to use that same type of instrument online with every administrator in the school system. All that goes online. There's a timeline for all of that, so I'll do a spreadsheet together, when I'll need to do that. Assessment system changes. This is the letter that we got June 4th from the state superintendent. And Georgia milestones will be aligned to the Common Core Georgia Performance Standards. And will require more from students in the CRCT at the end of the course. it replaces. So Georgia Milestones is replacing the CRCT and then the course test. In order to better prepare students for college and career, provide a more realistic picture of academic progress, the major benefit of the system that it is one consistent testing program across grades 3 through 12, whereas previously students looked at a series of individual tests. Board members, a certain percentage of our students have to take that test online next year. Within a few years, what the state is saying is that 100% of our students will take the test online. I haven't heard anything about how they're going to help beef up our infrastructure and provide us the hardware to make those things happen. But I did see they spent $107.8 million to Raw Hill to put this testing program together for us. So not only are we having concerns with a new evaluation system, our entire staffs are having to deal with a drastically new testing system. College and Career Readiness and Performance Index. As you know, we implemented that last year. The state changed it for this year. We're still working through that instrument. Here, we work with the Principal Center, give our principals some very specific leadership. Most of the principals are APs as well that were selected. Had a mentor that worked with them on a periodic basis. They came to their school, they observed them, they talked with them. It was a very professional situation that Ms. Gordon has set up through RESA for these retired superintendents and retired associate superintendents to work with our administrative staff to say, let me help you become a better administrator. That's taking up a lot of time for us as well. And again, the professional development is going to have to focus on the SLOs and Common Core, and of course the new testing that we're going to have to be doing. Professional development, you know, we work, this is the third year now, next year for endorsements. So our teachers can get the endorsements from us rather than traveling off to some other place, make that happen, make it easier for them so that our teachers are highly qualified when it comes to state testing. Please understand. The funding were 7 years ago, we would have a balanced budget. We would have to be eating into the reserve. And we wouldn't have to be looking at the picture that's going to be presented to you in just a minute, which you'll hand out for a couple of days. Megan Brown, who's the finance director for the school system, is going to walk you through that. But remember, everything that we do, we're trying to do for our children. There are a lot of things that we could have done to be able to reduce what we spend on our children. But at that time, I don't think it's appropriate. Mr. Chairman, thank you. That's my presentation for you. Thank you. Thank you.
What I've given you is an updated sheet of the budget that you received in your packet earlier this week. The reason for the difference is we've paid a few bills since then and closed out a few accounts. So there's only one minor change, and it's in the special revenue section. There, that actually is a wash in accounts. It's revenue that we are reimbursed for, so there's no change in the bottom line. But I did want to give you the most up-to-date information because this is the information that will be published in the paper. So what I plan to do for you tonight is just give you some background information on the budget process and then present to you the 2015 consolidated budget, tentative consolidated budget. We've been working quite some time now on putting the budget together, and we have recently been given the preliminary tax digest from the local tax assessor's office along with the allotment sheet from the state. We just received this information late last week, and that information was very critical to us as we were able to get a firmer feel of where our revenues are for 2015. As far as the tax digest goes, we do expect a slight increase in local tax dollars collected. The amount yet is to be determined because the appeal process has begun, so it will depend on how much of those appeals go through and get approved. Getting this increase would be very good news for our district, as we have not seen an increase in over 5 years in the local tax dollars we've received. We do not expect that increase to be significant, but it will not get us anywhere near where we were back in 2008, but we do hope that that will be a good indication of the economy getting better, and that will continue to improve and become a trend. And we hope to get back to those numbers in the next coming years. As far as the allotment sheet goes, we did receive a net increase of about $2.5 million. This is due to the decrease in the amount of austerity. Through the austerity reduction, we were still hit with about $6.5 million. That is a huge hit, and they have not given us any indication if we'll receive that reduction again next year, so we'll just have to wait and see. But the net reduction this year was $2.5 million. As we have done in the past and continue to do with this budget, we're taking the long-range view and trying to utilize the additional funding with that long-range view in mind. As we go through the budget process and look at the expenditures, the FTE count is what drives our consumables for the classroom and staffing needs. We do see this number has also decreased over the past years, and again did decrease some this year. We're fortunate in that health insurance did not increase like it was proposed to do, but we will have future health costs to look at as we look at this year's budget and next year's. We see state health benefit plan dwindling in funds, so we have to assume that they will eventually pass that cost down to us. Looking at the document I gave you and the document up on the board, you'll see that the projected beginning fund balance for the year 2015 is $9,521,000. That is what we project for the end of the fiscal year 14 to go into the 15 budget. That is a projection, and will change as we close out the year. As you look at the revenues, local sources are $37,953,511. That is made up of taxpayer money, E-rate revenue, facility usage, and other local revenues. As I stated earlier, we have increased here a little due to the preliminary increase in the digest, but do not see that increase being significant at this time. Looking at the state sources, the total revenue received is $66,780,692, which are our local QBE fundings and have the net increase that we talked about earlier of the $2.5 million. Federal sources include indirect costs of flood funds and total $287,000. Total revenue for 2015 totals $105,021,202. Looking down at the expenses, and I will go through each of these for you. The instruction is the portion of the budget that pays the direct instructional expenses and is the largest expense in our district. Instruction costs for 2015 are $77,844,018. Pupil support services covers our hospital homebound nurses, curriculum budgets, and other director budgets totaling $2,896,751. Improvement of instruction or indirect instructional costs in total $466,196, while media services are $1,756,220 in 2015. General administration, which will be your human resource costs, your superintendent costs, and other administrative costs,